1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, journalism is difficult, expensive, and dangerous as an industry as a whole and as a job for people entering it. As an operator, like a news agency that owns stake and actually creates content, or as an individual talent like a reporter, you really have to spend a lot of money, a lot of resources, and a lot of time to be able to go around the world, to be able to get the most visceral and proximate news. Things like war-torn areas like Russia and Ukraine, contested territories like what's happening in Iran, Gaza, and Israel, or even being able to cover international elections like what's happening in parts of Asia and in Africa. The common denominator for this business model, especially in a world with so much globalization and competition from government and private agencies, makes it particularly difficult and expensive to be able to compete. As a consequence, we think that this is a legitimate and effective means to be able to create a capitalist incentive structure to be able to incentivize particular businesses and people to continue being able to create content, because more journalism is better for everyone, because people have a plurality of choice to be able to view, and this is not gate-kept by just those individuals who have money, who have capacity, and who have authority. Which is why our push from side opposition is simple. It's completely legitimate and effective to create these barriers that actually cater to a more premium market segment. Here are a couple of things that we think are relevant to this debate. Number one, this is a value judgment debate, not about if journalism or online journalism is good or bad, nor is it about paywalls in a vacuum, because we understand where SideGov is coming from. In a perfect world where we didn't have financial and economic reality, I'd want everything to be free and accessible. But because we have costs that are incurred, like what I mentioned in my pre-oration, it's completely legitimate for these businesses to be able to monetize this particular content. How does this look like? This particularly looks like the interplay between free content and paid content. Because the push I have to side government is very simple. Online journalism behind the paywall isn't the only journalism that we have in status quo. We have free journalism, like what we see in cable TV, in local and international news outlets, and even what we have on the radio, and even free content we have on their website or in social media. A lot of these things are able to deal with the accessibility point that the previous speaker had mentioned, but I hope that as the debate goes, they can explain a bit more about that. I'm curious to hear what they mean. The second thing that I have to say is that the nuance to content that is paid or behind the paywall, it's not like you won't get access to things happening like, oh, there's a scandal happening in the government, or oh, we're having an election tomorrow, for instance, or oh, there's a national holiday happening here. We have to understand specifically the content that you have that is paid behind the paywall refer to more premium things that cater to those in the middle or upper middle class or even upper classes who are willing to pay for more specialized forms of content. This looks like, but is not limited to, things like first access to particular information that is deeper than the average, because we recognize that on both sides of the house, you're gonna get access to particular free material because of other stakeholders and governments that already do that. B, things like exclusive access to in-depth information of that particular analyst or reporter, and even access to things like debates and discussions that are exclusive to paid users. We think that these things aren't that expensive. It on average costs like 99 cents or $1 every month. And to engage with the point from the previous speaker, sure, this might not be a lot of money, but absent that, how are you going to be able to get that money to maybe be able to help fund these particular things? The harm on their comparative, if you remove these things, is that It might even restrict their ability to be able to go to farther places, and as a consequence, the coverage that they have might be monolithic or centered in what's proximate or convenient for them. But we think in the advent of true journalism, we want everyone from other parts of the world to serve as a check and balance to be able to give each other a plurality of information. What have we told you so far? We uniquely talked to you about the harms of removing the paywall and the paid subscription model in comparison to the benefits that are left standing if you allow it to exist. Additionally, we think that the harm that can happen is a sensationalization of content. What this means is that if you don't have a paywall and you're only reliant on things like ad revenue, for instance, which may be a thing that their side could defend, the harm is that everyone's gonna rush to the most clickbaity, the most tricky, the most scandalous things in order to get views. That in and of itself is not bad. I understand that's the nature of journalism, but uniquely if you're able to or remove that particular way for them to make money, they might resort to those tricky tactics in order to get views, which make it less proximate and a race to the bottom of people just pushing out those particular headlines. The second thing here is what I mentioned in my pre-oration and setup, that there exist alternatives. And on our side, we give people an option or an alternative. If you don't want to pay, all good. You can stay in the free content. If you want to pay, we give you the content that you want to be able to make more informed financial, economic, social, and political discussions. On their side, you rob people the access to be able to make that information. Uniquely, what we told you so far is that if you want the business model to be sustainable for the company and for the people working there, which we understand are important, we need to be able to allow information to spread in all of its forms to be able to cater to different segments. Those who don't want to pay, free content, no problem. Those who have the capacity and motivation to pay, get the more proper and paid content. For all of these reasons, we are very proud to clash and stand on side negative. Thank you.